The sad part about it is he died in his brother's arms. They were twins, identical twins. And his brother was holding on to him, trying to make it stop bleeding. And he died in his brother's arms. And I rushed up there, and I saw him on the gurney. And I could tell. They said he wasn't breathing. I could see all the blood. I saw where the wound was.
I am not alleged. I did it. I am not alleged. I did it. Those are the shocking words, adding up to a confession from 17-year-old Karmelo Anthony, which he is alleged to have made to police in Frisco, Texas, in the United States, after he was handcuffed and arrested for the fatal stabbing of 17-year-old Austin Metcalf during a track games between their schools. Now, all this happened just because, as alleged, Austin Metcalf told Karmelo Anthony to exit from under a tent which he allegedly was not designated to sit under. And Karmelo refused and threatened that if Austin dared touch him, he would see the consequence, to which Austin allegedly obliged and touched him. And just like that, Anthony pulled out a weapon and unalived Austin Metcalf. This is the sum of this crazy thing between these two teenagers. Now, this case is threatening to become something else that is even worse than what it already is in itself, because it's looking like the race of the victim and that of the suspect is becoming an issue. Here, Austin Metcalf, the victim, is white, whilst the suspect, Karmelo Anthony, is black. I should state this for the record. I am not into these things. I'm not into colors. I believe every human being is a human being. We are all one, and our differences makes us unique and beautiful. I don't judge people based on their colors. I don't have anything against any race. But it looks like this case is looking to have some racial undertones from some people in the public, especially when it comes to how some people are approaching this case. And sometimes it looks like objectivity is being thrown out of the window. This video is going to give a deep dive analysis on all the facts or all the parts of this case that has been reported so far, and I'll add my 2 cents. I'll try and analyze along with you. So we try to find a sense of objectivity in all these haystack of this issue, because it looks like the objectivity is becoming a needle that we would have to find through this haystack per our analysis. Now, this case is looking like the reverse of that of George Floyd. If you are not familiar with the case of George Floyd, where a white police officer or a white man was being suspected of being responsible for the demise of a black man. So you saw what happened. If you are not familiar, just go to my playlist. It's there. The case of George Floyd. America was literally turned upside down. It gave birth to the concept and the movement and the propaganda and the whatever of Black Lives Matter, Million Man March, up and down, what have you. Yeah. But in this case, it's the other way around, where a black teen has unalived a white teen. And some people on social media are saying that, why don't we also see the white community in the US doing the same thing that was done for George Floyd in honor of Austin Metcalf? And matter of fact, aside the fact that a GoFundMe has been raised or has been set up to raise money for supporting the family of Austin Metcalf, which is raising over $150,000 the last time I checked. Apart from that fact, interviews have been done of the Metcalf family, where you actually have Metcalf's dad and his twin brother and even his mom talking about the pain they felt and the fact that they forgive Karmelo Anthony and they hope his family understands what they are going through, being the family of the victim and all. You don't really sense hostility from them. You don't really sense any indication of revenge. You don't even sense anything that suggests that America is going to be turned upside down, or even Frisco, their community, is going to be turned upside down. And this is what has gotten people talking, because some people have the view that if this had been a white kid being responsible for the demise of a black kid, it would have gone down a different lane. and probably it would have brought back certain trends that came up with the case of George Floyd. And what is fueling this kind of narrative seems to also be due to the fact that Karmelo Anthony, who is the key suspect in the demise of Austin Metcalf, also has a GoFundMe set up to support him. He didn't ask for it to be set up. That has not been determined. But some way, somehow, a GoFundMe has been set up to support Karmelo Anthony, which has raised, think about over $200,000 the last time I knew. So people were like, imagine how it would have been taken if a GoFundMe had been set up for the white police officer who was deemed responsible for the demise of George Floyd. You haven't ever seen any such thing. Well, that's the report out there. The argument is you don't really see these things happening where a white person is held as the main suspect for the demise of a black person and a GoFundMe has been set up for that person. It's almost as though you are saying we are supporting this person for the killing the person has done. But I beg to differ a bit on this perspective with regards to what I will explain. I think that there can be times when the person being accused would have a GoFundMe set up to support the person. And I'll base that on two reasons. The first is in situations where maybe people believe that the one who is being accused and being held is actually maybe not guilty, or he did what he did by mistake or out of a bad decision. And they are trying to help him reform his life by raising that support for him. And then also the second bit where the case is not that clear cut and they think that maybe the person is even being accused falsely, but the person may need some funds to fight the case. That could also translate to this, especially in a situation now where we haven't really had a court of law find Karmelo Anthony guilty. As it stands now, it's mainly about what witnesses said, what the police are saying he said, and also what the sentiments are out there. But when the emotions meet the law, I always say this thing, when emotions come face to face with the law, most often the emotion will lose because the law will situate the law at where the law is supposed to be situated. So that is how come there's this saying that he is presumed innocent until proven guilty. Just that with some type of cases, looking at the circumstances surrounding it and the facts, well, I wouldn't say facts, and the details that have been uncovered during investigation, sometimes even before it gets to court, you can determine almost to a point that this will be an open and shut case in court, and most often it is. But then again, that is not to say Karmelo Anthony is guilty. As it stands now, he is deemed a key suspect. That is how I will refer to him, because he has yet to be found guilty of what he's been accused of by a competent court of law. Now, that is dusted. Let's go to the next aspect of this case. But before I do, if you haven't subscribed to the channel, kindly do so and turn on the post notification and help the channel grow. In fact, our analytics show us that most of you who watch the video have actually not subscribed, and it's really affecting the channel adversely. Now, the next chapter of this case has to do with the fact that there is also a narration being pushed out there that Karmelo Anthony was a victim of Austin Metcalf and some friends of his, allegedly, based on the fact that they were bullying him. There hasn't been anything to substantiate those allegations, but let's just delve into that allegation and analyze it a bit, because I don't think it makes sense. I don't think it's a likely thing or something that was happening, because one, when it comes to bullying, most often than not, the victim wouldn't be going to where the bully is. In actual fact, as a form of self-preservation, you would find that the victim will be mostly deliberately and conscientiously trying his best to move away from where the bully is and even avoid meeting the bully altogether, so that the bully can't get to start anything. Now, transposing that analysis to what has been reported so far on this case. How did this start? We see Karmelo Anthony, the alleged victim of the bully, as alleged, now rather venturing to sit under the tent of this alleged bully, Austin Metcalf, and go to the point of challenging this alleged bully and his peers when he was asked to leave, which in this case was actually a get out of jail free card for him as a victim, being asked by the bully to just exit. That would have been a peaceful one for a victim, and he refused and actually gave a warning and a threat that if you touch me, you see what will happen, to which Austin touched him and he pulled a knife. I don't see anything there that indicates that he's a victim of bullying. In fact, it seems that there could be a possibility that he actually went there looking for trouble, because Mind you, this is a school event. Why was he there with a knife in the first place? That is a key question I don't see most people asking. Why was he there with a knife? And the fact that he knew he wasn't supposed to be there. Of course, unless he didn't know. But if he knew he wasn't supposed to be there, and he was insistent on being there even after being asked to, and he issued that threat and pulled a knife to exact what he did, I think that doesn't connote a victim posture. It doesn't suggest anything about that as being a case of a bully and his victim defending himself. And that claim of self-defense, I'm sure it will not fly. I've been saying this in some of my videos. People go overboard and they come and say it's self-defense. That will not fly. One, my little knowledge, some of these legal things is usually determining which action suffices as self-defense. The first thing that most courts will look at, depending on the jurisdiction of course, but the first thing most courts will look at is the fact that the action you are taking or undertaking as your way of defending yourself should be of equal proportion or commensurate to the action being exerted on you for which you've considered that you have to defend yourself from. So you can't have somebody telling you to leave a tent and you saying that touch me and see what happens, and the person obliges and touches you, and your first action to defend yourself is you pull out a knife and stab the person. That is straight up something that cannot be held as a defense in self-defense. No, he might end up facing the murder charge and actually being found guilty. I don't know how his lawyers will treat this. I don't know if any other evidence will come and dispute or refute some of these things that have been put out. But looking at what it is right now, I don't think he has a strong case going with the defense of self-defense. And also even going with the defense that he was a victim of bullying. Because if you do the analysis, everything suggests that he went there looking for trouble. He was armed. And there is yet to be any evidence that suggests that there's a prior history between these two guys where maybe they've had an altercation before or he has suffered bullying at their hands before. I'm yet to see any record of that being reported. But even if there was, he was asked to leave a tent under which he had no jurisdiction because it was not designated for him. He should have left. Unless, of course, he was actually bullied and he was seeking retribution and vengeance. And so, when they were not taking the bait, he decided to push and push so he gets his vengeance. I don't know. But I foresee this case as it's going to possibly go a long way. And it's also sort of bringing out the different dynamics in the US community, because some are saying that they are expecting blacks to come out and condemn the actions of Karmelo Anthony, just as they condemned the actions of Derek Chauvin, the police officer, the white police officer who was actually found guilty of the demise of George Floyd. But so far, you don't really see that happening. I've seen some opinions on this on social media, and honestly, it seems like a lot of people are actually defending Karmelo Anthony and actually also seeking to imply that he was defending himself. Sometimes I don't think it's a sign of they being racist. I think that sometimes it's a sign of their underappreciation of the law when it comes to the concept of self-defense. If he pushed or if he touched Anthony and Anthony pushed him away, I think that could equal a form of self-defense. But it got physical, and he also had to rely on some physical capabilities of his to defend himself. I think that could still suffice as self-defense. But to move from being held straight to pulling out a weapon and inflicting a fatal wound, that I don't think will suffice as self-defense. But hey, all this being said, I would want to know your opinion as well in the comment section, because this could be a tricky one. There are certain times when it seems like a case is going to be open and shut only for one little tweak in the facts of the case to change the outcome and set a landmark ruling. Now, Karmelo Anthony is just 17 years old. If he is found guilty, he stands the risk of serving up to 99 years in prison, in which case he might probably spend the rest of his life in prison. Yeah, that's how sad it is. And for Austin Metcalf, he is already gone. And you should watch the interview with his mom and twin brother. His twin brother actually witnessed this allegedly and saw him take his last breath. I wouldn't want that for anybody. It's so heavy. If you ever lost a loved one before, can appreciate some of these things. Even when it's under natural circumstances, it's not easy. Not to talk of the fact that this is a 17-year-old twin watching his other twin taking his last breath after being fatally wounded with that weapon. That leaves a trauma in itself that I think they should also pay attention. And for the fact that this is also going to drag out through the media, through the courts, through reportage, through the news. This is setting the stage for the family to go through a long phase of pain and trauma, which they will relive and relive and relive, probably until a point they are able to find the strength to it, because it's going to drag until the case is done. Sometimes it gets messy and painful, but the question is, did it have to come to this? And I analyze this from two sides. Let's start with Karmelo Anthony. Why were you there? And also, one thing I almost forgot, there is even rumor that Karmelo Anthony was actually searching through the belongings of the people who were designated to be under the tent under which he was not supposed to be. And that is what allegedly triggered Austin Metcalf to challenge him and confront him to leave the tent. I don't know how true that is, but if that is the case, then I think it just defeats any defense that Karmelo Anthony is going to put up. But then, like I was saying earlier, they did have to get to this, and I'm going to break it down. Let's start with Karmelo Anthony. For whatever reason he was under the tent, at the point he realized he was not supposed to be there, I think he should have left, especially when he was being asked to leave. I don't know the manner in which they asked him, because sometimes that can also become something else. But I think that if he had left, we wouldn't be where we are now. But again, someone would say that is me talking with the benefit of hindsight after everything has already happened, because I'm not sure that the two of them knew this was going to be the outcome. And that is the thing. Sometimes it becomes a very, very difficult thing when certain things play out, and it usually starts with very little triggers and instances. I've always talked about giving people respect and realizing that people react differently in the same situation. Somebody may just walk away. Someone might even apologize and walk away. Someone might pull a knife. This is not to blame the victim, but to talk about the fact that sometimes it's not worth it. It was a tent, it's not your home. You don't need to fight and pull a knife for that. And also, for Austin Metcalf, even if the guy was going through people's luggage or people's bag, or if that was not the case, but he was just under a tent he wasn't supposed to be, I think youthful exuberance aside, he could have just escalated to the appropriate authorities so they deal with it. Don't get drawn into the personal heated exchange. Most often, it doesn't go well. If you can walk away, walk away. You can't walk away because sometimes you need to check some people. If you can't walk away, take it up the right channel. That way, they will deal with the person the way they need to. Don't take it upon yourself to confront the person. Because I'm sure if it was the campus security that confronted Karmelo Anthony, he wouldn't dare pull out a knife. He would have been very, very self-aware of the actions he would have to take. Sometimes some of these happenings, as has happened between Karmelo Anthony and Austin Metcalf, begin to depict the undertones of how certain situations have become really tensions in the society. Because when this happened, you would have naturally expected that Karmelo Anthony would be called out for his extreme action in reaction to what Austin Metcalf did. But if you look at the sentimentality and emotion with which some people are defending him and the points they raise, you see that some people are just blinded by the colors and they will defend their color irrespective of what the person has done. And I think that is a shame. I don't condone that. I'm black. But in this case, the things that have been reported so far, they are true. I think that Karmelo Anthony went too far, and his actions, I do not agree, would connote as self-defense. That is my opinion. You can let me know yours in the comment section. But hey, keep your head on a swivel. I've always been saying a little bit of paranoia keeps you alive. Stay safe. There are some crazy people out there. Watch your back. Keep your head on a swivel. Share the video. Learn from these cases. Don't just listen and act surprised or act in awe or grieve with the families. My heart goes out with the Metcalf family. May Austin Metcalf rest in peace. I hope they find justice, but most often what really hurts me is no matter the justice they'll find in court, nothing can bring back Austin Metcalf. Gone. That is the crazy side of such cases. Believe and learn. I'll catch you on the next one.